All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. Today, we have a ton to go over in a short amount of time, so to get straight into it, tonight we are going to be covering the U.S. Admiral warns China could launch a surprise attack. On top of this, we just added in a breaking story about an underwater sea cable being cut and internet being down. It actually affects Europe. It affects India. This is a huge deal, especially on the heels of what has been going on this last week. We are going to be talking about satellite images reveal Chinese floating barrier out in the water. Something is going on. We just happened to deploy 5 carriers to the South China Seas. What the heck is happening here? Of course, we'll talk about the Chinese aircraft carriers are getting super stealth fighters. We're going to talk about why a Texas county declared a state of emergency. It may be a bit surprising to you, to say the least. Again, Navalny was on the verge of being freed in a high-stakes deal, and then what happens? Again, this is very, very odd, and it almost backs up exactly what we were speculating on. Again, we'll cover that. Was Navalny cold tortured before he perished? Again, our opinions on that in a minute. NATO and EU states considering sending troops to Ukraine. Didn't see that one coming. It's official. Sweden to join NATO. Hungary finally gave up. Now we see it. And of course, Putin threatening European nation looking to join NATO. We have warring cartels wiping tourists off the face of Earth. And we have JB will make rare visit to the southern border on the same day as our former President Trump. Again, and then we're going to also talk about it's alive. JAXA Slim survived frigid lunar night. And we'll, of course, cover the Pentagon says new high-altitude balloon intercepted over the U.S. likely is a, quote, hobby craft. We'll see what happens there. U.S. airmen, of course, most people know about this. We'll talk about what is happening on Twitter because of it. Gentleman took his own in a very incredible fashion, very, very crazy, very insane event. And then China's EV takeover, we called this, knew that was coming. All in just a moment. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. You don't have to be high to see the problem in the sky. You don't have to be high to see the problem in the sky. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and we're going to be going over from, of course, U.S. over to Taiwan. Now, this is a crazy quote from an admiral. This is pretty nuts. So it's going along exactly where we thought it would be right now. A U.S. admiral warns China could launch surprise attack from military drills. Well, who wouldn't have seen that coming? Of course, we've talked about all of the drills that they did. And of course, if we saw another drill where they actually surround an island, it would probably be the real thing. Now, if you remember back when we had officials visit them one of the first times, China responded by surrounding all of Taiwan. They actually did ships all around it. And essentially, people thought that it would be a war right then. There was even pictures from the Taiwan coastline. You could see the actual military ships all around the island. It was very spooky. There was lights off in the ocean every which way you looked. If they do that again, that's probably a big problem. Maybe there is some sort of intelligence that says this. Is this why he is saying this? Of course, we just deployed 5 U.S. carriers to the South China Sea. And of course, in a minute here, we'll talk about the line that is forming out in the ocean. This is also something they practiced. Now, would they keep drilling and drilling the same thing, or would this be a drill to actually hide the movement and the beginning of an actual war? Now, remember, Russia, when it took Ukraine a year before exactly, they actually went and brought 160,000 troops to the border. And then when everybody thought, oh, they're going to go in and invade, they said, psych, just kidding, it was just a drill. Drills are used to hide actual military movement. In many cases, drills have turned into the real thing. It is a good way to not cause panic. If they see military tanks rolling through the street, they say, oh, it's just the biggest drill in history. For example, NATO right now is doing the largest drill in history over months long, and they're moving tanks around the streets of Europe. That is not normal, but again, because it's a drill, nobody's really tripping about it. They have also added in dragon's teeth to borders of Russia. Poland has dragon's teeth at all of the entrances. Dragon's teeth are, of course, tank stoppers. They're the big, huge, crazy star-looking things or triangle things that can essentially make it hard for a tank to pass. There's been tons of things like that, including all of the trenches being dug in Romania. The list goes on. The fences and all sorts of things being built up. When it comes to China, many of us believe that China will do this all at the same time. And this isn't just based on a guess. We've talked to many active and retired military members that have given us their thorough opinion of how they believe this would go. And what's really creepy to me is that a lot of them all match up. Some of these guys are active, including, so we go to what did the Admiral say? Dex, do you want to go over what the Admiral said and why this is a big deal?
So specifically talking about exercises, he said, quote, just in the last 3 years, step level changes in the force levels, meaning the Chinese military, excuse me, the jointness of those force levels, the rehearsals that are apparent to the joint force, and the raising the threshold of warning to the point. In other words, each time they do these drills, they're getting bigger and bigger to the point where soon they'll be at a point where the force is sufficient to actually execute a profound military operation in the field and operating under a big leaf of exercise. So in other words, what he's saying is, as we continue to watch them do these drills after drills after drills, exercise after exercise, they're getting larger. And each time they get larger, everybody just says, well, it's another drill. It's another drill. And eventually the drill is going to be so large that they can actually just execute and no longer call it a drill.
Mind you, the timing of the aircraft carriers being deployed, the timing of all of these weird events that are happening, the cyber hacks that are affecting our comms. Now, mind you, what if the AT&T was just a dry run? What if that is something bigger? Now, again, people are going, oh, well, AT&T said it was an update. An update that knocked out people's lives and communications for an entire day. I'm sorry, it's pretty hard to screw it up that bad in multiple states, all over the place. Again, I understand that tech could be messed up by something like that, but how it spread out, almost like it was being affected by something, straight up being attacked, then yeah, I guess it was just an update, right? The same day that China threatens us and the same day officials visit China. It seems kind of like a far stretch to believe that, especially considering AT&T is directly connected to the government. AT&T and the company that came before it, the Bell that was absorbed into it. As far as that goes, they are directly tied. It would be a direct target. Why didn't they go after T-Mobile or Sprint or somewhere else? Actually, I don't know. Sprint may have been absorbed by them anyways. But as far as this goes, there's a lot of material being moved around. There's a lot of actual military gear and tanks and equipment being moved all around the world just by the U.S. Mike Minahan, the commander of our U.S., I forget what they call his division. Dex, do you remember what Mike Minhan's division is. It's essentially the cargo of the military. Whatever that is, it ended up calling. Mike Minhan is the leader of that. He ended up removing almost all of the identifying numbers off of the cargo planes. You would do that if you're moving things around the world and you don't want every Bob, Joe, and Susan to say, hey, that's a military cargo ship coming in. Now, they might think it's a FedEx ship. They might, again, because they use actual commercial-looking cargo ships, but they usually say U.S. Army and all of this, and people would go, hey, why is the U.S. Army delivering here? But as far as, because they're not all green, military planes, there's a lot in their fleet. If they remove the identifying numbers, people can't just look up and go, wait, that's a U.S. Army one. That's weird to me. Why else would they do that unless they wanted to conceal what they are moving around? That is the same gentleman who gave a memo to his employees and to his understaffing saying, hey guys, get ready for war with China. We've heard get ready for war with China from so many of these commanders. It's insane. And you also think about what is going on with our military, how there is a lot of finagling and tweaking of our military to take out certain types of people. But then that even drives it more further down the line of like, is something being scripted here? Is something happening on purpose? Are some people high-fiving behind closed doors and they're about to pull off something huge? I don't know, but this is very concerning. Again, we'll cover this over the next week because this is going to be a big deal in my opinion. And then we have satellite images reveal floating barrier at the mouth of the disputed atoll in the South China Sea. The timing of the deployment of 5 carriers and this happening is total coincidence. Dex, I'm going to pull up the image. Do you want to go over what the heck is happening here?
Yeah, so the media outlet was given access to the satellite imaging from Maxar Technologies, and they were looking at it. And it's from the 22nd, so it's not that far ago. This is in the Scarborough Shoal area, which is one of the areas we've covered recently because there's been a lot of activity between the Philippines and China there. And more specifically, what they're now seeing is that little arc. It's kind of hard. It's very faint because it's a satellite image, but that arc is a line of floating barrier that's been put in the water. And according to the Philippines, they say, quote, we can assume that the barrier is intended for the Philippine government vessels because they, meaning China, install it every time they monitor our presence within the BDM vicinity. That comes from Jay Tarila, the spokesperson from the Philippine Coast Guard. So he's referring to the Bajo de Maslinac, Manila's name for that shoal. So apparently now they're putting up these lines to sort of put a barrier in saying you can't cross this line, specifically China putting it in, keeping the Philippines from going across that territory or that area. That's a contested area. They both believe it's theirs. This is, also the areas that they've continued to see heated transactions, not necessarily kinetic in the sense that we would see firing of weapons, but they did fire water cannons at one another. They have rammed ships. They have even shot lasers into the into what they thought would be the captain's quarters, or not quarters, but the brig, so to speak. So they could potentially blind them. All of those types of activities have happened, and we're just one step away from them actually getting completely kinetic, where they use some sort of weaponry against one ship or another.
Now, also, they have dredgers. They actually have doubled their technology capacity for dredging up land. So when you zoom this out, you see kind of these atolls, right? The parts of the sea that are a little bit higher, and even some of these you could walk on, right? They have special machinery. How they made the South China, the Spratly Islands, or added to them, is they had these special ships that were basically vacuum cleaners, grabbed dirt from the bottom of the sea, went through a special pump, and then it was dropped out in a certain area. They just kept piling sand up and sand up and sand up until they had an island. It was something that was done when I first started, and I covered this before they were islands, and I said those are going to be forward operating bases. The proof is back before they even said that these things were had a single person on them. There was this debate going, and I said that they're making a forward operating base. When you fast forward, then they put their first airfield on it. They put their first barracks. They put their first oil tanks. put their first anti-air missiles on it. All of this happened over time. But since the very beginning, it was super obvious what they were doing. They were making bases, sea bases like this, and at that kind of, it's not exactly midpoint, but it's definitely further away. That would be needed if you were to restock and resupply ships, especially during a big war. If you look at what is on those islands now, it is all military. They even have areas for their entire Navy, which they now have the largest Navy in the world. This is something that a lot of us are taking way more seriously in the last 2 years. As far as the U.S., like Guam, is an incredibly important strategic area. You have Hawaii, an incredibly strategic area. And then you look at what has China been caught doing? Well, scanning Hawaii, having people infiltrate or supposedly infiltrate Guam. You're talking about actual people coming to the island saying, oh, we're just looking for a better place to live. These are specific people from a specific place. And the officials there are going, whoa, where is this influx coming from? At the same time, if you go down to where JB and T-Man are going to visit, you have just an enormous amount coming in out of nowhere. It's like the number went from next to nil to, whoa, there's tens of thousands coming in. Why? All 18 to 25-year-old military men. And people are allowed to question. We should be able to question, like, what the heck is going on here? As far as the atolls here, they could also make actual barriers. It doesn't have to be a floating barrier like this. They could use those dredgers, which, mind you, they put millions and millions, if not billions of dollars in investing these specialized dredgers to double the output so they could make more islands. Those aren't the last island. The Spratly Islands are just the beginning. So yeah, this whole area, this is where that was at. And then we have, out of China, Chinese aircraft carriers are getting super 5th generation stealth fighters. Watch out, Taiwan. So obviously the big debate with the U.S. Our carriers are obviously much more high tech and way stronger than Chinese 3 carriers, I believe. I think that they have 2 fully operational. The third they were actually looking for pilots for, and we don't know what the 100% real truth is about the status of these things, because we've seen before where China did things under the cover of darkness, and then comes out all of a sudden they have 10,000 more ships. I wish I was exaggerating. They all of a sudden came out with tens of thousands of ships, and it's because they were building under cover of satellite. You couldn't see where they were building all this stuff. Now, like we got information from the Fugel fam, our community told us this years ago that they were building up their Air Force to compete with the U.S. They wanted to build the largest Air Force in the world. Mind you, people go, oh, well, it's their 5th generation fighters. Is it really? Because if you remember correctly, our 5th generation fighter plans, I believe, were stolen. So if they've got blueprints, they can make the same exact stuff we can. In fact, China has basically been running the planet as far as manufacturing goes. Many companies and many technology companies have been sending their stuff for China for their cheap labor to build this stuff. The thought and the old school thought that China can't build anything that won't fall apart, that's a long time ago. They do make knockoff stuff and whatever else. They do it for a reason. It's greed and money and make it for as cheap as possible, cheap labor as possible, and selling it for as much as possible. That's a business move. That's not a skill, a lack of skill. As far as the high-tech stuff they're making, they are making some of the highest tech stuff in the world. That's not me saying that. That's our own Pentagon saying that they are ahead in 37 out of 44 categories of the most high-tech AI and autonomous stuff and advanced technology. So their 5th generation super stealth fighters, who knows? Again, these things could be carbon copies with a couple little tweaks like a knockoff of ours. Does that mean that they're not going to be as good as ours? It might. I hope it doesn't. But can they manufacture more than we can? Well, the U.S. hasn't exactly been, angled towards being a manufacturing company. Dex, it's crazy because we sent all of our companies elsewhere. Cars are made other places. We're going to talk about it later in the show with the EV stuff. It's like they're posturing themselves to be number one.
They certainly are, and I think they have another carrier coming out in the next year or two. But we certainly, this is new news. It's a speculation, but the J-35, which is, you might say was equivalent to an F-35, not exactly, but to them it is the plane that they're saying that they may be putting on the older carriers. So the challenge, if you guys aren't familiar with their carriers, their older carriers do not have catapults. They just have the planes have to take off under their own power, and they have a ramp. So that means they can't take off with heavy weight. They can't be loaded down with tons of munitions like they are on, say, the U.S. aircraft carriers. We can load them down because we use steam or electric to catapult the plane much faster off of the deck, so it can get airborne quicker with a heavier weight.
And mind you, their new ones have it. Their new ones have catapults. Their
the new one that's coming out is going to have it. That it's the first one that'll have it. It's not nuclear, but it is steam powered. Not the ship, but the catapult is steam powered, and it will have it. But they're saying that they're seeing these J-35 mock-ups on the smaller, older equipment. Now, that doesn't mean that the J-35 will be loaded down with heavy armaments, but it will be able to carry some stuff. And the J-35 is the one that is the most likely to be stealth and not detected as easily by our Navy. So that'll probably be the ones that will be the biggest challenge to the U.S. Navy in the Pacific.
And a reminder, if it is true what they say that they have a low Earth satellite, some sort of low Earth item that can block our radars from seeing either missiles or planes coming at them. They believe that this will be how they take down our aircraft carriers. Our aircraft carriers are one of the most important, are the strike groups. They're not just the aircraft carrier, but the strike groups that escort them are one of our most important assets. They are most powerful. Our Navy kicks ass. But if they can somehow cripple those aircraft carriers, if they can stop them from detecting, that would be a massive deal. Electronic warfare is the new warfare. And that's why when there's these big hacks and these cyber events, people are not realizing that these are attacks of war. These are acts of war being done onto the U.S. right now as we speak. There's of course reason for them to say, "Oh, it's a software update." That's my opinion, at least. What is yours? Are they going to tell you, "Oh yeah, China just knocked out communications to a quarter of the country or nationwide across the country"? That's an act of war. If they absolutely know that was China, that's an act of war. So, mind you, we're about to cover underwater sea cables were cut by some of the people that have been chatting with China. So, China and Russia. Before we move on, reminder, there's a lot of problems in the world, but we usually try to give you the solution. As independents, we've picked our affiliates as affiliates that we think will either save your life in a disaster or make your life more comfortable. As far as EMP Shield, I think this will help people actually travel. I still think that there's a lot of questions to be asked about what will happen after an EMP. As far as even if your car works, will other people's cars work? And if the freeways are blocked up, I just suggested to somebody earlier, have a gas-powered scooter or a motorcycle as a backup. A lot of folks now, no joke, are having fold-up gas-powered scooters in their trunks in case they get stuck on the freeway. I know this because some of my friends now do it all the time. As far as, but EMP, if we have an adversary hit us with multiple EMPs, there is a big difference of being able to get in your car and go home or not being able to go home. If you're 30 miles away from home and you work far from work, are you going to walk 30 miles? Well, you might have to. They've even predicted it. FE and MA has predicted during big earthquakes like Cascadia, people are going to walk 25 miles to get home because all of the freeways will be down. So as far as with an EMP or something like this, it's a possibility. But even more so, The solar side, this protects you against solar activity as well. If a Carrington level, I shouldn't say if, when a Carrington level event happens, because it is not an if, it will happen. When one hits us directly, then our whole grid could go down. Back when the last one happens, telegraph wires caught fire, and now our equipment is 10 times more sensitive. So I can't imagine what it would do modern day if it hit us like it hit us back then. As far as if that does, this will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it fries your device, your car, your truck, your motorcycle, your boat, your home. You can get one for your home, and you can even get one for your solar generator, as far as go for an Energy Flex 1500. We're suggesting solar because if the power goes out, gas stations do too. Water pumps go out. You won't have running water. And none of this stuff is going to work if we lose our grid, whether it be for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 3 years. They're saying, it could be anywhere from 6 to 24 months. And that's the 24 months now people are saying is with our supply running somewhat normal. That might not happen. Not to mention if the rest of the world is buzzing. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. When you go through us, you'll save $50 off per device, and you help us. We are on our own. We don't have a multi-channel network. We're independent. So thank you guys for, again, checking that out. But more so, please share us out with somebody new. We're up against a ton of craziness, especially this year. Dex, let's go over. Texas County declares a state of emergency ahead of the solar eclipse. What the heck?
So here we have yet another. This is not the first. I think we talked about Ohio doing it, but now we have another county in Texas, in a significant large area that's right in the path of this eclipse area that is literally declaring a state of emergency. They are expecting their entire population to double, if not triple, and they cannot handle that. So they're needing help, and they want to make sure that they've got access to the kind of help. They got people paying $1,000 to get a plane ticket into this location. They've got people, and I've been hearing everybody, trying to book up Airbnbs and paying, $800 a night for hotel rooms in all these small towns along the path so that they can get in the right spot to see this total solar eclipse, because it's just going to be one small path that moves up from to like Ohio, and it works its way up up through the northeastern portion of America. So yeah, a lot of these towns are going to get inundated, and they're saying that you may get in there and be trapped and not be able to get. You may not be able to get all the way in, and when you get there, you may get stuck and not be able to get all the way back out for a long time. I know in the Ohio update, they were telling people, hey, try to get in a day before and try to make sure your car is full of water and food that can sustain you for a day, because you may get stuck for a while, because they're just not built to handle the type of volume of people that are coming in. Now, that's all for the eclipse. What makes me wonder is this could create another type of environment that's rich for something else to happen at that same time. I mean, imagine what you do when a whole lot of people are in these localities. Hundreds of thousands of people have moved into these swaths of land that and are occupying these tight spaces when this eclipse is happening. Is that an opportunity for something else to happen? Something on the homeland, something like an EMP or et cetera. So I would say start paying attention to what's going on with this date. It's April 8th. That's when the eclipse happens. Sure, it's going to be a fun, scientific solar event to look at, or don't look at it directly, but at the same time, we need to look at it from a prepper's point of view, like what may happen when this large of a number of people are going to be out across the country in this one isolated area.
Now, and especially in a place that is not normally set up for huge crowds, is not set up for tens of thousands, if not a million people showing up. An event like that, you could easily come in a couple weeks before and set something up. You could build something there. You could do all sorts of things. You wouldn't, but maybe some of the folks that have been coming in from other adversarial countries would. So that's something to pay attention to. But, you can't live afraid to live your life. If you're going down and visiting, let us know. Are you going to travel to Texas to do this? I saw one of the previous ones In fact, I believe the pictures of that, I don't know if that was from the last one, but that one a few years back, that was insane. I didn't have my own glasses, so I had to like borrow somebody's because I didn't know that people went to Walgreens or whatever and bought those glasses. But with those glasses, looking at it when it's fully, that was just insane. One of the coolest things I've ever seen in person. So if you didn't see it, I can understand why people are going to travel to see it. By the way, just a quick pause. Let's do a quick roll call. Thank you, Carol. By the way, thank you for the super. I appreciate your super sticker. Let's do a quick roll call in the chat and say hello. And if you want to just put a general state or province, then you get to find other people around you. I was just telling somebody today, it sounds like they're alone in one of the states. Highly recommend you have, if you don't have extended family or friends, then I'd highly recommend having, getting into finding a forum, finding a group that you can depend on, knowing somebody that may have a ham radio operator license, somebody that has the ability to use a ham radio. And then also, huge suggestion, have an AM radio. A lot of people only have their car. If your car doesn't work or something happens to your car, have a smaller AM radio that you can have stored away somewhere safe. You can make your own Faraday cage, by the way, for stuff like that. Let's see here. Central Pennsylvania, Wide Awake and Angry. Nate Dampier from Donna County. And then Wood Guy from my mom. Eliza in Wonderland from BC. We've got get a shortwave radio, says Sean C. Let's see here. Derek from Ohio. What's going on? North Central Texas. We have in the house. Greenville, South Carolina. Vander Knight. Nice to see you. Lady L. We've got Kimberly Marks from Western Kentucky. Jagger Johnson. The end is near. What is happening? The Truth Iris from Western Colorado. Lancaster, PA in the house. Paul Barbacano. Nice to see you, Paul. Thank you for showing up again. Sin Durden from New Mexico. Diane Whitlock says shortwave is a good asset. Well, it occurs to me, like I talked to a couple of my friends the other day, they don't have a radio. Nobody has a boom box anymore. They have their car, and that's the only way that they would listen to an AM radio. Or if you do, I guess if you have an EMP shield on it, you could, but I don't know how that works if the radio can get fried separately. Terry Wilkerson, Weechie, prayers going out. And then Marie 9, Lady L, Curb Creeper. I have a boombox, LOL, says Ryan Matthew. Yeah, I actually do too. I've had the same one since I was 13 with the big old side speakers, CD and tape player. Used to listen to my Zig Ziglar tapes on it. Lord Andrew, Leesburg, Florida Central Florida. What's going on? Dirty Skies from Cali. We've got Conan. We've got Dennis B. from Stanford, Kentucky. Carol says, I have several boom boxes. Gosh, that's funny. I saw a garage sale. This guy had like 8 of them, and they were all really cool. I don't know if you remember, for a while there, at the very end of the life of when boom boxes were being sold, they started getting really cool. Like they started getting like this thin with like vertical CD trays. They were made of glass and see-through and all weird types of see-through speakers. It kind of reminds me back in the 80s when they did those landline telephones. My sister had one that was translucent, and you could see all of the chips inside and stuff. That's what they did with boom boxes right before they died. And then Texas and everyone else. Yeah, a lot of people have no booms. You should have an emergency radio, though, especially, in a lot of areas. AM radio, this is why we talked about it the other day, about how George, Mr. Soar, Mr. O's, is buying Audacity or Odyssey. I think it's called Odyssey, Audacy. They own 220. It's like 2/3 of the AM towers in the country. That's why he's bailing them out. It's like $400 million or something. He's bailing them out. Why does he want the AM channels? People said, oh, it's because he wants to get rid of the right-leaning radio people. I highly doubt that they're going to knock off every right-leaning person on the radio, but I think that's the least of the worries. AM radio is how, when it all goes down, that is going to be the way that people get the information for a disaster. So that's very scary to me. That seems really weird. All right, thank you guys, and thank you, Carol. Carol, again, thank you for the super. Appreciate that. And then Stephanie Cook, thank you yesterday. And of course, NJM, Canada considers a ban. I don't think I got this one. Considers a ban on personal electric heaters. Oh, I did get that one. Yeah, that's nuts. I can't see why. Are they saying that's for the environment? And then George Costanza yesterday said multiple blacked out helicopters flying low. Actually, no, that was on Friday or 3 days ago. So George Costanza, by the way, I don't know if you saw like Monkeyworks. There's a lot of stuff that was covered over. There's crazy amounts of just all of these drills going on at the same time. Makes you wonder, right? Most of them all happening at night. And then Red Sea, Houthis hit underwater communications cables. Dex, this is a big worry for everybody here. I mean, everybody's worried that the U.S. cable would be cut. This was a major cable, but who was affected?
Yeah, so according to the reports, the cables are they're routed in the Red Sea between Jeddah and Saudi Arabia and Djibouti and East Africa. And they're belonging to these companies called AAE1, CCOM, EIG, and TGN, which I know none of us know who they are. But it's causing serious disruption of internet communications between Europe and Asia, with the main damage being felt in the Gulf countries and India. Now, it's not an outage completely. It's just going to be a disruption because they do have other cables in the area and they can reroute on other cables. But this is, a repair of this is not easy. It can take a lot of time. It can take a minimum of 8 weeks, according to some of the estimates they've already put out there. So this is, yet another escalation, a different type of escalation. But if they, go in and start taking, pot shots and taking out the rest of the cables, it can become a pretty big deal. We do know there's some major cables that run through there, backhauling, and including ones that the U.S. owns or U.S. companies own, as well as there was that big one that China was going to be building because they were trying to get people to switch to them, and nobody wanted to do it. So they said, well, we'll just build it anyway. So they're building a duplicate cable through there. China is. So I don't know that one's in place yet, but there's a whole lot of cables that run through those areas.
Wasn't it? It was something like China wanted to. Sorry about that, guys. China wanted to. Just trying to keep you on your toes. China wanted to be put on to that cable or something, and then it wasn't the U.S. or NATO or somebody said, no, we don't want you on our cable or something, and they said, okay, well, screw you guys, we're going to make our own that competes with it. And their angle is like, well, do you want the CIA and everybody, basically filtering out your communications? But it's like, would you rather have China doing that? I guess some countries are actually more on board with that than the U.S. They hate the U.S. so bad that seems like a better choice right now, which is crazy. And then Navalny was on the verge of being freed in a high-stakes deal with Vladimir Putin when he suddenly perished. If you guys heard what I thought, and I'm not basing it on any information, this was just my general thoughts, that I thought it was really weird how everything happened. I thought it was weird how, this is when I thought it was really weird, is when they gave his mom an ultimatum and said, you can't tell about, or you have to come and you have 3 hours to basically look at the perished person. And what was it? She had to do it in secret or something. And then they were going to take him and put him somewhere secret. They weren't going to bury him or something, right?
They weren't going to give her the rights to have his funeral and bury him where she wanted. They were going to bury him in the prison if she didn't agree to having a private ceremony. She had a private ceremony so that the public wasn't there. then she could have him and bury him wherever she wanted.
Okay, does that not like have anybody's like spider sense going off? Like basically there's not going to be any proof of him being out there, right? I'm not saying that he is still around, but I thought that was very weird. What if they bring her in and say, "Hey, by the way, he's right here. We're going to let you guys talk for 3 hours, but we're working on something." Later down the road, when politically they need a real good kind of boost with the UN or somebody else, they go, everybody's like, "Well, you took out Navalny, your opponent." And Putin could come out later and say, "Actually, we put him in the witness protection program, or our version of it, and he's right here. So all those evil names you called us, we're not. We actually saved him," or something, right? That's the thing. Is there any actual proof that he perished? Like, did they put out pictures or anything? They also, by the way, the video cameras at the prison were wiped out 3 days before. FSB came in 3 days before. And they're saying, they're using that going, "Oh, they took him out." But what if it was the opposite? And this is just my prediction. Later down the road, he's going to like pull him out or something. Him and possibly, who knows, Wagner could be alive. These all could be strategic choices. And then later on say, "No, actually I didn't. No, actually I didn't." Or somebody else got him out. You know, 3-letter agency from over here got him out and put him and hid him somewhere to say that he perished or something. I don't know. The whole thing is just freaking wacky. Dex, do you know what I mean? Like, it seems like Russia keeps doing these things that would not exactly help them, right?
Yeah, and in this particular instance, they're trying to make the case or the claim that there was a negotiation for him, as well as the Wall Street journalist reporter Evan Gershkov, who was mentioned during the Tucker interview, and obviously in exchange for some people that were high profile for Russia. And apparently, the deal had gotten to the point of solid negotiation at the end, and ready to do it. And then they're claiming that Putin actually changed his mind, didn't want it to go through, and so this is why he did that. That's one of the reasons they're claiming why he did this.
Okay, so but back to what I said.
It's all speculation, though, right? At the same time, we don't know. We don't know any of this, and we don't even know where the body is. The only person I recall hearing has seen it is the mother. The mother has claimed to have seen and identified the body.
Okay, but do you see my point? What if, and now they come out, it's even more sketchy. I said this the other day before we saw this. Now they actually put something out saying there was a deal in the process to have him somehow freed. What if for political reasons they say he perished and he didn't? Why the secret funeral? Why will they not show? "Oh, well, we don't want him to be a martyr." This smells. Does anybody else smell that? Like, doesn't seem right.
Sorry to interrupt. The update from Al Jazeera is that the mother does have the body now, so she must have made the agreement, and she does have the body. So I don't know what's going to happen with the funeral. She's going to abide by the rules, but she does have it, according to them now.
Yeah, maybe they looked at what was said and the criticisms of why, and that she could be involved in something. I'm sure she would. It depends on what they would get out of it. I don't know. This just something is wrong. Why haven't we seen pictures with anybody this high profile? They show, they try to show proof of death. Putin critic Alex Novena was cold torture before perishing, and again, speculation from a humanitarian group. All of this seems like this whole event was like the breeding ground of potential propaganda in all directions. Like anybody could turn this into whatever. They could spin this whichever way they want, depending on what side you're on. This was helpful to everybody, depending on what argument you wanted to claim. The only people this doesn't help, I guess, is Russia. But yeah. And that's what Western media says, that's who took him out, It says that he suffered tying, mobilization, blocking of arms and legs, and cold torture before he perished. I guess we might not ever know. We don't know what exactly happened there. And then Dex, do you want to go over NATO and EU states considering sending troops to Ukraine? This is like a here it is moment.
Oh, yeah. So the Prime Minister of Slovakia has claimed that NATO and EU member states are actually preparing to deploy troops into UKR. So not enough money there, not enough people there. Apparently, they have lost so many people that they now need more soldiers, which we knew was coming. We've talked about how the average age has increased, but now they're not offering any details of how the Western soldiers could be sent. But they are now suggesting, though, that this person that was speaking from Slovakia was speaking, saying that the meeting implies that a number of NATO and EU member states are considering that they will send their troops to Ukraine on a bilateral basis. I cannot say for what purpose, what they should be doing there, he said. So that's kind of the claim. We don't know exactly the details of who it would be. We've got speculation, but certainly it doesn't matter if it's anybody that's NATO. It's NATO. If it's one, it's enough. So that will change the game, I guess. But at the same time, it looks like they're not winning, and nobody's funding them. There's been a few people like Germany, I think, sent in a recent package, and others have sent packages. We haven't sent anything, and we're the ones that fund the whole thing. So, without that, they're just going to fall apart. And I guess maybe this is a little bit of the scare tactic to tell the rest of the NATO members, including the US, to, hey, pay the bill and give them what they want, or your sons and daughters are going to now come in here. Or maybe they really are going to do that. Maybe they're really going to take that step. That's the one thing that everybody's been saying is just pay the bill so we don't have to send our own people.
So now American people will be begging. They'll say, yeah, you handle, go pay the bill. We don't want World War III. Or is this just part of what everybody thought was going to happen? That eventually they would run out. Nobody would want to pay the bill anymore. Then they would have to go in. How would all of that, how do they exit out of this? Now that we've spent billions of dollars. I won't say trillions yet. Gosh, it must be getting close though. As far as all of the world sending money and everything else there, how do they just say, okay, I guess it's like every other war that we just spend just unbelievable amounts of money and then just walk away? They said at one point early in the war that this was going to cost every U.S. taxpayer around $11,000 in taxes. That's insanity. And that was way early on. Now they're talking about another $60 billion. Now they're talking about troops going in. Does this tie in with how, all of the leaks and the German leaks saying that Russia's going to strike and all this stuff to scare us into saying, yeah, we need to go to war with Russia? Or are they setting us up mentally for World War III? It sounds like something way bigger is about to go down. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Mind you, another military member, Jared, believes that Ukraine will be, what was it? They said, what did they say? They said that Ukraine would have, what was it, like 3 months ago? November said that they believed by April that they would have NATO boots on the ground. That was the prediction we said earlier. And it wasn't a prediction. It was more like this guy said that. It's kind of lining up. Now it's February. February 2 months from now. And now we have articles saying NATO and EU states considering sending troops to Ukraine. Quite crazy. And before we move on, just a reminder with all the craziness that's going on, we just had an issue ourselves today with a special medication and one of my kids needs. And they said that the insurance companies, there was an issue with their systems with the insurance companies. Highly recommend having backup stuff. And it made us think, and I don't think the stuff that we need, I don't think we can get it from somebody like Jace Medical. But there are a lot of things that this is a legit telehealth site that you can actually get a kit that has a lot of the most needed stuff. You actually get a board certified doctor you can go to We only have Jace as an affiliate because of requests from you guys asking so many times, how do we get this? I've used Jace before during CV. I've used them myself and never really thought of them as an affiliate, but now there is a definite demand for backup medications. So this is a legit way you can do it. You talk to a board certified doctor, you do a whole telehealth appointment, all that, and then you're set up and you can get yourself a Jace case, which has all sorts of really, really great stuff that you might need on hand. There's all sorts of other things they do, so go just learn more over there. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace, Jase, and make sure to use the code MARF. Then we get credit and you get a discount on it. But as far as like that goes, right now, there's that pharmacy hack is still ongoing. With the pharmacies and whatever happened, the same day that the cellular outage happened, there was a massive cyber attack on pharmacies. 30,000 pharmacies were dead in the water. And I don't know if what happened today was related to that, but when we asked, they said, no, this isn't just us. This is everywhere. The person in front of us, they said, how is this possible? You guys are a hospital. They said, it's not us. We have the stuff here. We just can't give it to you, and you can buy it at cost. You can purchase it, but the system between us and the insurance companies are down. And it's not just us, it's everywhere, because this was a pharmacy inside of a hospital. So, and apparently the person, other than that, was already at 3 locations and could not get prescriptions that were paid for. They could purchase their thing. See, luckily ours, the stuff we need, is very cheap. And that hopefully that never changes, because we don't know if we'll ever have to change to a different kind, but it's like $24 or something for it if you don't have insurance. But, you know, like the person in front of us, it's like $1,400 for like a month of whatever they were getting. So it's like, that's a huge, huge deal. So just a reminder, that is a way that you can get certain things. You can't, you know, obviously there's limitations to what they can do without going in, but there's obviously a lot of great stuff. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say they have 2 different programs. One is the emergency antibiotic kit, which has all your essentials, but they also have this daily, it's called a prescription supplier, Jace Daily. And if you have daily meds that you take, as long as it fits certain categories that they cover, which is pretty broad, they got a lot of things, just not the stuff that is controlled substances. But yeah, you can get everything from allergy, anti-seizure, antiviral, all the way to, you know, family planning, etc., mental health, all of that stuff, thyroid. They've got, if you've got a daily medicine, you can work with them to get a year's supply so that you can then keep that in rotation so that you always have that emergency set, which is really cool.
Yeah, so go check it out. Say the least, go learn more from it. And then let's see here. Sweden is to join NATO. It's official. So at first it was Turkey that held up their entrance into NATO. Then it was Hungary. Hungary kind of came out of left field. I guess I was surprised by it, because after Turkey said, oh, okay, Sweden, you're good to go, they got something out of it. Dex, actually, you said, you know, I bet that Hungary is trying to get something out of it. They're trying to get paid, or they're trying to get something. And then we covered a story. I believe Hungary got some sort of military deal out of it. And then
Swedish jets.
And which, is that not a bribe? It's like Sweden needs to join NATO, and Hungary's like, no, I'm not going to do it. Sweden's like, well, what if we give you a few jets? Will you say yes? They're like, okay. That seems like not legit. I don't know. What do you guys think? But it's official. Sweden is to join NATO. This is I mean, if you believe all the red lines that Russia has put out, which obviously we've crossed almost all of them. But one of the huge red lines was no more countries on our border that were part of NATO. This is the last one that really mattered. And now it's official. They're going to join. At the same time that we have this precipice, like everybody believes we're right on the edge of World War III. Now the kind of final red line has been crossed. They are now completely surrounded. All of their territories are surrounded now. So, yeah, this is Sweden adds actually a lot to NATO. There's a lot of positives about adding NATO in. Sweden's always been quite neutral with a lot of stuff. They're not Switzerland, but they are definitely one of the more neutral countries with a lot of stuff. And now Sweden, Finland are both in. So this is like really big. It's not official though yet. When does it? It says when do they actually get into NATO? Like when's the first day of them being official NATO, or is it official already? It says it's official to join. When do they actually get in?
Oh yeah. I think it's official. I think it's pretty much just a matter of paperwork. So at later this week, I think there'll be a flag raising ceremony expected at NATO headquarters later this week. So consider it done. I mean, at this point, the main thing was Hungary needed to vote 188-6. But going back to that prior article about NATO possibly sending troops into UKR, what if they go the approach of who was the last one to join? You guys got to pony up the troops. Do you think Sweden's going to be happy about sending troops into UKR?
I don't know. Maybe they. I know that Poland was the one that's heavily kind of tied in. Had Zelensky there and doing his historic speech in Warsaw. Don't know so much about the Sweden though. Sweden and all of the NATO countries, Sweden, Poland, Finland, the Netherlands, Germany, that's at least 5 just off the top of my head, that are telling their citizens to prepare for war. But I guess people are still thinking it's not going to happen. And then Moldova, Putin threatening European nation looking to join NATO. Strategic signaling, NATO says. Dex, you want to go over this one?
Well, yeah. So the Moldovan president has been openly sort of talking about joining EU, joining NATO. And the speculation here is that this would definitely be the next one that if they make any signs towards joining, that you're going to see very much like you saw with UKR, where Putin says, no, I can't have that. So they're suggesting that in addition to the fact that we've talked about Transnistria, or however you say that territory, which is inside of Moldova, that is a bunch of Russians live in and believe that they are Russian. They're treated as a territory, but they are in Moldova. There's been speculation that they may try to secede, or whatever you want to call it, whatever term that they would use for the governments there, to actually become part of Russia. But the flip side is they're saying that, if Moldova literally starts to talk going down a path of EU, or more specifically NATO, that Putin will probably say that's a significant red line and might even try to go in there.
What isn't, though? At this point, they've said it about everything. Sarah Springman Schumach. Thank you so much for subscribing. Rookley, thank you for subscribing. Steve Smith, thank you for subscribing. Media Doli, thank you so much for subscribing. Uncle Bob, thank you for subscribing. Thank you. A lot of new subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate each and every person who does end up subscribing. It does help you find our stuff. Make sure, if you're new here, hit the notification bell, and also check out our sister channel, Marfoogle News. Same spelling, just instead of TV, put news at the end. And Mexico, warring Mexican cartels are, quote, wiping tourists off the face of the earth as they move into resorts. We've talked about the cartels a lot lately. A lot of folks, I heard a crazy theory online that people think that the 3-letter agencies are no longer there anymore, and that the cartels have taken over or something. One thing is for sure, the cartels are not going anywhere. In Mexico, they're stronger than ever, and they're most likely tied in with half of the politicians around the world. That's what's nuts, is Mexico's cartel. And there's many cartels, but the Mexican cartels They are involved with all sorts of politicians around the world. They just recently found American weapons that they were like, how did these get into the hands of cartel members? I'll tell you how. They're doing work with all sorts of people behind closed doors. There's all sorts of backdoor money deals going on. There's so much corruption, it's not even funny. But now they say that innocent tourists have been caught up in the crossfire of the conflicting Mexican cartels. Visitors from around the world have become collateral damage, with some being, quote, wiped off the face of the earth. I guess that's their nice way of saying being taken out. Tourists have been taken out for a while now. In Mexico, there's been stories, at least, of families and people going there and having things happen. For the most part, like the opinion of my friend who lives in Mexico, he said, it depends on where you are. And he said most of Mexico, it's totally overhyped. But there's places like Juarez and other places that are just, there's a different law there. I mean, it's the police have to cover their faces, because if somebody knows that they are a police officer, they will be wiped off the face of the earth. And that they mean it in that sense, because their families, everybody is gone. That's happened a bunch. We've covered a ton of stories regarding that. But it says the rules have changed, according to an expert. It comes as 4 drug cartels are reportedly taking the lives to assert dominance over an 80-mile stretch of resorts. These are tourist towns, resorts, places that you go because you think, oh, this is the safe place. I don't know how much of this is true and how much of this is, exaggeration or fear or that, Ganda. But that's pretty freaky. Like, we just covered a story that was in Belize or something that had some crazy incidents where they were taken. That's right. We just covered this crazy story. Get this. Dex, I'm trying to remember how it went. I don't want to paraphrase, but essentially they
were running a tourist agency. Is that the one you're thinking
yes,
of?
and all the way to the taxi cab that picked them up from the airport, took them to their accommodations. All of it was part of the cartel. So even the travel agency that they would contact, they would book the flight, everything. It was all cartel from beginning to end, to where they were then taken and ransomed or taken out was all cartel. So even the taxi companies were running a front for the cartel, and they were bringing these people from all over the world and getting them to fly there, go to a resort when it was really, and I don't know, they say this is a true story. Like, that's nuts. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and the big thing that's happening in this is coming from a private investigator there that obviously gets involved in trying to help solve some of these problems for Americans, is that the cartels are changing the rules. He says they used to abide by their own criminal rules that were very similar to like the Italian mob. In other words, they don't cross lines, they leave women and children alone, and they stay out of the resorts. They stay out of the travel area, because they know that that's like the lifeblood and the bread and butter. And if they did those things, they could basically stay under the radar and not get hurt. But now they're to the point where they have so much power, they're not worried about getting hurt anymore. So they've basically thrown all those rules out the window, and it doesn't matter. Now they're going against one another. Now they're fighting for more power amongst each other, not caring if they're seen anymore, not trying to stay under the radar. And they're going right into the resorts. They're going right into areas that they used to say, well, this is off limits, we'll just leave this alone. And now they're like, nope, we're going into that, and we're going to take anything we can, like we just talked about, running the travel agencies and pulling the people in and doing whatever they wanted to and extorting them.
Well, maybe I don't know. From what I knew before, it was like they would be afraid of world government or U.S. government. I know U.S. government helped, the CIA helped certain sides of the cartels to take out other cartels. Heck, the CIA armed more cartel members than probably anybody else did. And if they were going against, they wanted to take out a certain cartel, they would help the other side. They'd be like, well, we'll help. We hate Bob and we hate Steve, but we hate Steve more, so we'll help Bob out and give him a weapon. That they did that for a while. Now, Are we so weak in the world that we don't have sway to where they're like, well, screw it. Nobody's going to come stop us. I don't know.
Well, look at what we did in the Middle East, where we built up these groups like the I and the S, and then we went away and abandoned them, and then let them do what they wanted to, and then funded them from time to time, and then they all of a sudden turned into our enemies. I almost feel like if we had anything to do with these cartels in the past, and now we're just letting it go, and it's built up to what it is, it's going to turn into our own problem, just like we had with the Middle East, where at least we had the advantage of distance. Now we don't have that anymore. The distance is right there at our border. The distance is walk across, and ask anybody that lives down there. They'll tell you they're already dealing with it. They've been dealing with it for years, and what the cartel can do, even inside America.
Yeah, and people only think about like how the cartel brings people over. The cartel themselves will start moving slowly up. We were in a war with Mexico when World War World War One? Or no. Yeah, it was World War One. When World War One started, we were in a war with Mexico, fighting what's his face, and it was like we could have another war with Mexico. It wouldn't be the Mexican government; it would be the cartels. It seems like they're growing and growing and growing. But if you look at the situation at our southern border, everybody's worried about the refugees. Well, what about also the bad guys? It's not like I'm sure they bring them across and go, okay, we got you across. Thanks for the money. Where are they going to go spend that money? I bet you they can just as easily, if they have the system down, they can come and go whenever they please. And we've also covered a ton of stories happening along the southern border in the American cities of them either getting in accidents or doing crimes. And currently, they've minimized all of these crimes. They don't want the media to pick up on that. And the folks with the MSM, they don't love covering when somebody from outside the country does really bad things. At least that's what it seems like. Barefooted nurse. Did you see where the UK man attempted to boom Tucker Carlson while in Russia? He admitted on video, quote, where it puts in parentheses, if the translation was correct. I don't think I have seen that. Dex, have you seen that where a guy said that he tried to take out Tucker?
No, I have not seen it.
I have not seen that. So if you can send it to us or tag me on Twitter at Marfoogle, that would be great. And then Carol, thank you for another super. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super sticker. Over on D Live, the family is alive over there. Thank you guys. End is near. Skyhouse DFW Jackie, Beer Juice, Priscilla R, Skyhouse, thank you. And then J Girl, that's Smee. Thank you. Thank you guys for making it tonight. And let's pop over to the normal chat. Randy Man is still here. Let's go. Miss Bella. It's on Twitter. I always tag y'all. Okay. Well, I can't see every tag, Miss Bella. I get a lot of tags. But if you give me a time frame, I can actually go check. And then Schaefer Girl, Mary Gunn, amen. Bobby Sue, Nita Lane, thank you. Soldier Girl, Schaefer Girl, thank you. Three Horses Running, Stevie J Blue, Texas Twitter. By the way, a good time to tag me in things is about 6 or 7 in the morning, right when I wake up, before I go to work. And then I usually tweet at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. So catch me right then and tag me in it, and I'll probably see it. You guys notice I tweet almost every morning at 7 a.m. And then Wide Awake and Angry, Briar Patch, Shastina. Let's see here. Willie Hunt is here. Wide Awake and Angry. Thank you. Why take him out? Well, I know there's obviously the theory that he is number one enemy. You know, he goes against media, goes against US and stuff. Soldier Girl, probably autocorrect. Craig Alicious, Dan P, Miss Bella. Got it, me too. Sweet. And then Tucker, leaving to the bunker. Cynthia DeMoss, a.k.a. Duchess. Hey, nice to see you over on X. James Damron over on X as well was there earlier. Old Rider, Soldier Girl, and Tammy Lee. They don't like speaking out. They hate truth. 100% agree with that. And then over to the Texas border, Biden will make a rare visit to the southern border the same day as T-Man. So our former prez and JB at the same time, they're planning to make a visit, apparently the same day. And I bet, what do you guys want to bet that this won't happen the same day, or they'll say they've delayed it? Why are they going on the same day? Again, it says the plans underscore the urgency now propelling the JB administration on immigration, which has become one of its most serious political liabilities. Under the JB administration, record numbers of migrants have crossed the southern border, a fact that Mr. Trump and Republicans have wielded aggressively against JB. A majority of Americans disapprove of JB's job performance, and polls show that the president's detractors cite immigration more than any other policy issues when assessing him. It is an easy one for both sides to kind of go, oh, okay. But more so, it's such a huge one. That is why I see a lot of arguing saying, oh, well, actually, we need it. I see people making the case. Even when we showed you a couple weeks ago, they have news stories showing families. So back back when the whole Martha's Vineyard thing happened, is it Martha's Vineyard? Basically, immigrants coming into Florida, DeSantis says, I think it was DeSantis, right? One of the governors ended up shipping their immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. And it was a big deal. It was a big story. It was like, okay, well, if you want them to come over so bad, you house them, you give them jobs, you give them everything. And they told these people, they bust them to Martha's Vineyard, and they said, oh, these guys say they totally want you. They're going to give you jobs. They were promised like jobs. They said, hey, these guys are going to help you out. They're going to take you in. They'll give you help, all that. This is before all of this stuff that came out. And it was like, they were like, oh, we don't want them here. Of course, right? So the big thing was like, oh, if you want them here, then you take them into your house yourself. Well, over the last couple of weeks, there's been tons of stories coming out across the country. So they don't have that to use against them. They're actually taking in families of immigrants. So there's been these things like, oh, we took in a family of 4 from South Africa, or we took in a family of 4 from Ecuador. And there's been all these TV clips of this happening. And everybody's like, man, this is just waiting to have a disaster happen, right? Taking in people they've never met before, just they apply, they get it, and they come live with a family, right? And all of these people, it seems like they're totally proud to take them in. They want to be on the news. They're excited, saying, these guys are great to have in our house. They make the best food, and oh gosh, what's her face cleans the house so well. It's like, this doesn't sound that normal. But either way, now they're doing that. As far as the record number coming in, they're trying to actually argue that they need this. Now they're telling us, like, we need diversity to this point. Like, we need more people. What's his face on Joe Rogan? What was it? Was it Michael Rappaport, I think, that said it? He said, no, we're broken and we need, oh, no, it was Louis C.K. I think it was Louis C.K. And he said, no, the U.S. is too nice and too good. Like, we need to have them here. It's just like, this is silly. This is crazy. Saying, oh, it's too perfect here. It's too nice here. If we do this, it will be a better country because it will be more mixed up. It's like, what kind of common sense is this? I can understand taking some folks that are in horrible positions and trying to save them from a horrible country or horrible government. But not all of these folks are refugees from horrible governments, and not all of them are even in a bad situation. Some of them are just straight up people from adversarial countries that are coming in to do harm. And that's the big problem right now. How do they decipher which one is which? They can't. It's like going into war into a guerrilla fighting scenario where the citizens and the kids and the people and the wives might have an RPG. You don't know who the enemy is. And it's growing a bigger problem every day. Dex, why the heck are they visiting the same day, though? Like, what kind of publicity stunt is this? Or is it because they're trying to take politicking over? Do you think they're trying to eclipse the fact that T-Man's going? Or match him?
at least match it or try to get something out of it, because he was already planning to go there. He was, they're just now announcing that Biden allegedly is going to be going there. So we'll see. There's another thing that I don't know that anybody's really given, and I'm not going to say I'm the only one that's thought of this, but maybe somebody else has talked about this. But you talk about the need for bringing people in. If you look at the prison industrial complex, right? The whole notion of our commercial prisons systems. I'm just pulled up a chart looking at prison population over time. It's been declining. So I wonder if bringing in more immigrants that are criminals helps fund or fuel that industry, which, by the way, is paid for by taxpayers. But that's another area that you could actually fuel by bringing in, especially when you bring in people from countries and they're just sending over people out of their prisons right into our borders, so that we just lock them up. Now, you actually have to lock them up for that to happen, which apparently we don't do. Even here in Georgia, we just had a poor girl at UGA campus got unalived by a person from Venezuela who was not supposed to be here, and was also arrested numerous times and released by ICE. And the governor's making a real big deal about it right now, trying to get answers from the president on it as well. One of many. I know there's tons of those examples out there, but nonetheless.
I just saw a video this morning. A guy took out 3 people driving reckless, and there's hundreds of examples in the last couple months. Every time there is one, Twitter, it goes viral on Twitter. I mean, there's obviously people that are looking for that too, so they rarely get through the cracks. And then JAXA's alive. Apparently this lander, and I know this splits people up in here, but JAXA's slim moon lander sends new photos after surviving frigid lunar night. Slim, short for smart lander for investigating moon. It sounds totally like a mistranslated, notice on Amazon. Smart lander for investigating moon. Responded to a command from Earth after hibernating for nearly a month. Part of the downtime fell during the cold of the moon's 2-week night, mission officials announced early Monday on X, formerly Twitter. Last night, a command was sent to Slim, and a response was received, confirming that the spacecraft has made it through the lunar night and maintained communication capabilities, wrote officials from the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, or JAXA in English. The electronics were operational despite surface temperatures being at 212 Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. That's I don't know. Maybe I guess I didn't realize the moon was hot. 100 degrees hotter than here. And then the team wrote in Japanese that in another post, machine translated by Google. It says, if we continue to communicate, things will get even hotter. So yesterday I decided to communicate for a while and then take a break again. JAXA's post continued, appearing to be playfully impersonating the lander. Oh, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. The lander is not only awake, but continuing to gather a bit of science. What is a bit of science? What is it collecting? A moon rock or two? Fresh mission imagery of the mission's Japanese language account shows a new zone of the moon, which it was not visible last time. According to the machine translation of the X post, images were taken using the mission's navigation camera. Slim's officials wrote in another post, although the team plans to only make contact again when local temperatures have fallen to safer levels. Now, I guess we'll see. And then the U.S., what's going on with the U.S. one, right? What are the updates from that? And there was pictures of that. We probably should have showed what they said was that. They have pictures of it flying to the moon, and they actually have kind of a picture like this of Earth, which, of course, is being debated on Twitter, whether it's real or not, or if it's CGI. At this point, until we can all physically go to the moon ourselves, I don't think anybody can really argue about it, because unless you go yourself, if they say, oh, I've got solid pictures right here, pictures and video, especially video now can be faked. Any video can be faked, and right now there might be a couple, things that let you know it's fake, but very soon it won't. Very soon it will be so good, AI will be so good that it's. And I had no idea when they said that AI was going to replace even people like YouTubers and things like that. I thought that's so stupid. There's no way they could ever have somebody replace, people's personalities. They could literally clone. They could make. They could take Tom Cruise and 9 other celebrities and then say, AI, can you morph a perfect personality out of those? And I bet you it probably would. And it would be to the point where people would be like, I actually like this guy. I mean, that's nuts. If you haven't seen the Sora stuff, it is, if that is all real and it's not some crazy operation, man, that is so terrifying. What's terrifying is that we won't know what's real. I mean, we already don't. And then the Pentagon says new high-altitude balloon intercepted over the U.S., likely a hobby craft, year after China controversy. So the first balloon that passed was a Chinese balloon with possible surveillance networks on it, whatever. This one was probably just a hobby craft. At least that's what they're claiming. Dex, the balloon flew over the first time. This definitely had people. This is the same day. Wasn't this the same day that the cellular outage happened, or was it the next day?
I think it was after. It was shortly after. But yeah, they had told us last week that it was nothing to be concerned about. It would probably be over Georgia by Friday. That they had looked at it and said it wasn't a threat. It wasn't maneuverable. It was small and had no propulsion. So now they've come out and said, officially, they believe it's a hobby balloon. And again, we're not going to know anything other than what they want to tell us because none of us were at 50,000 feet looking at this thing.
Yeah, we're basically just trusting them. They don't even have a jet picture like they did last time where they take a picture of it. But the same, or right after this happened, right after the cellular outage. So people were definitely alarmed by the fact that there was another balloon. There was solar activity. We just had a couple weeks back them saying that something like this, a balloon with a low Earth satellite hooked to it, could actually radar jam and do different things. What if this was some sort of test? What if this went over a base and tried to jam its abilities, and then sent back the results? But they're saying that some Bill and Susie probably made this in their garage. Do you believe it? Let me know in the comments down below. They said it was intercepted by NORAD fighters over Utah, who determined it was not maneuverable and did not present a threat. So why are they still talking about it? I guess we'll find out. Real quick, our recommendation for a generator would be solar, because if the power goes out, you're not going to have the ability to go to the gas station. Most likely those will be the first things to go when the grid goes down, because people will be freaking out, going and grabbing gas, and then it will be empty. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy and go check out the Tactical. It is expandable, it's modular, and it's silent. It can be run inside the home. It is tough as nails. It is actually the same generator, and it was designed by the Air Force Research Laboratory that is going to be shipped out with the U.S. Army. So when they say Army Strong, they literally are saying it's Army Strong. It was made with steel reinforced frame. It has 1,500-pound latches, heaters built into every battery. So, of course, it can go through extreme cold temperatures. So it is a really, really well put together machine. It is one of the best. I would say if you're looking at their competitors, I would say highly recommend that you look at who they are working for. When I looked to have an affiliate like this, I looked at another company. I was like, oh, these actually look even, these look like they do the same thing and might even be less, and you can get them right away. But they were straight up for a company that was directly tied to a certain country. So I was like, not doing that. This one, again, is I've used both the Tactical and the Flex 1500, which is their regular. It's an ingenious idea. The fact that you can take it with you with one battery and go power your tools, go take it camping, power a campsite, or you can expand it and have an entire walls of batteries. And really, you can have as much time, battery life as you want. Or you can take one with you and power whatever you need. And it can be protected by an EMP shield. EMP shield directly makes an energy protector, which is actually being shown. Marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. There is a downside. The only downside to this, I believe, is the weight. Lithium, and these are all made in small batches. You're going to have to wait for it. So you much rather would have got this yesterday, more like months ago, than today. So that's the only downside. I would highly recommend getting something like this that you know is going to work, because the Army only cares about one thing. Is it going to work? And is it going to work every time? They don't care if it's pretty or if it has, Bluetooth radio and all that. They just want it to be able to turn on. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. By the way, if there is a solar generator out there with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all of that, I'd highly, highly recommend looking at what could happen to that if somebody can remotely access it. All right, and then Dex. Let's talk about the U.S. Airman hazmat threat on Dawn Jr.
Yeah, so quite a few different things happening here. One, the first one is the airman who performed an act in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, and he is no longer with us. He was speaking out against the actions of the government and supporting the other side, against the embassy there. And he did it in a way that was pretty gruesome and obviously eye-catching, or attention-catching, I should say. But yeah, it was actually streamed. We're not going to show you any of it. It's a pretty gruesome thing, but it's also something that you ought to know about, at least understand. I'm sure it's been talked about by many, but it's also not been covered. It's funny. I've seen some headlines, and I say funny. The coverage is funny. Of what they've done is that they would not call an air person or an airman. They would just call him a person, and they wouldn't reference the fact that he was in the military. But he was an airman and enlisted and performed this, and sad thing for his family, sad thing for his state of mind, in my opinion, that he felt like he had to do this.
And there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of stories going around about what he did before. I guess he was an IT guy. His LinkedIn actually had certain things on there, preferences that people are like, he was most likely a certain side of the aisle. So people are making a big deal out of that. A lot of people are saying, 2 letters, including M and K. There's theories ranging from A to Z on this one. As far as like the video, I saw it before, I saw the picture of it before it was blurred, but then by the time I watched the video, everything was blurred. In response to this, Twitter, it's all over Twitter right now, or X, is that they're pausing monetization for all creators. I'm not monetized on Twitter, so it doesn't affect me. But I do have friends that basically they're only on Twitter. And basically anybody who posted it, I think, is being like paused or something. And it seems to me like, gosh, that, the reason why X is kind of coming up is because people look at it and they go, they can do videos there, long and short form, all this stuff, shorts, this, that. They can do all of that there. And if they can make a comparable living to other platforms, then that could actually be a threat, because it is a big platform already. It doesn't need to go through the thing. It doesn't have to fight against some big giant. It is a giant. So it can pick up these kind of talents like doing video and live streaming and all that. It can just do it. But now that there's this controversy, and things like this happened on other platforms as well, where like one event, like where everybody covered something and then the platform went through and cleared it all out. That's what changes advertising. That's what changes what goes on. And it can really screw everything up. I mean, it's changed the way that these platforms work. When I first started, it was completely different. Completely different. You now it's like, the thought police, right? So hopefully they get that worked out. It's pretty crazy what was going on. And then Don Jr. This is crazy because with everything going on right now, nothing is really detracting from the pull of our former prez serving again. I mean, if you look anywhere, whether you hate him or you love him, you probably admit that the guy has a lot of loyal supporters, and it's still looking like he would easily win against whoever, especially with how bad even the left and right are looking at how JB is doing with the border and everything else. And especially them going after all of the gaffes. Like, I would assume, like, if they were going to go, usually it switches every time. It goes, from the left to the right, to the left to the right. Every other president, they want something they didn't have the time before. They're like, I'm tired of this, so now I want the other side. Then they're tired of the other side, so they want this side. With this, I don't see how. I would see them doing like Nikki Haley over doing JB again, right? And that's why you actually see a lot of people on the left supporting Nikki Haley. They're like, well, if I have to go to the right side, I'll go with her. But as far as with DT, that this guy is all of the stuff, the courts, the collusion stuff, all of this stuff has happened, and people, they're just not dropping off. They're like, nope, still going to go with it. And now there, of course, is like, stuff, envelopes being sent to people, to their kids. Is this a message to the kids? Like, Dex, you pointed out, like, that's kind of like a sign before, that's like a warning to somebody, like, oh, we'll go after this person and then it's you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I sort of speculated that this is the precursor or the warning that the T-Man is the next target.
And by the way, from Joe Rogan to AJ to all these people, they're questioning and just straight up saying out loud, like, is he going to have, somebody try to take him out or something? It's pretty crazy. But the hazmat team showed up and dealt with it. Some of the comments are pretty nuts down here.
Oh, let's not forget that. Do you remember the Atlantic article that George S's son, Alex, had posted?
Yeah.
It was, the image was a windshield with a bullet hole through it, and then $47, meaning because he would be the 47th president.
Yeah, that was creepy. Like, little secret kind of nod there. And then Lord Jacob Rothschild dies aged 87. Somebody said his money won't save him in the other side. And yeah, pretty much everybody agrees. He's about to meet a certain somebody, right? Oh, that one got me. Dex, you gotta look at the screen.
Yeah, that's funny. That's good.
The memes, man, some of them are just so creative and so good. All right. Anyways, moving on. Oh, and then China's EV takeover. We've talked about this a bunch. Well, there's actually been a lot of talk about Chinese EVs. Imagine like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 for an EV that goes 250 miles per, charge, goes 160 miles an hour, easy. Then imagine getting that same car for about $7,000. Which are you going to pick? Now, most people want to get the 5060, but realistically, if they need transportation and say, heck, they even require you to go electric, which one are you going to pick? Especially now with the economy and the forced inflation and shrinkflation and everything else. We talked about Chinese EVs coming in. They even had one as cheap as like $2,500 or something, and it was comparable. I mean, it was a transportation vehicle. But it says when Tesla CEO Elon Musk was asked in 2011 about the Chinese electric car maker BYD, a Warren Buffett-backed company focused on cheaper electric vehicle, and that's funny. Who is this? Hold on. This is Business Insider. Look. Cheaper, eclectic. You wonder if AI is literally writing everything right now. I honestly don't know if anything is wrote by humans anymore, because I caught this and I'm an idiot. Eclectic vehicles with a name short for Build Your Dreams. He simply laughed it off. He says, have you seen their car? He said it with a giggle to Bloomberg, adding that BYD didn't have a great product and the technology is not very strong. Mark's juvenile expression of hubris was and still is singular, but his belief in China's automakers were not a threat that was shared across the U.S. auto industry at the time. It says a lot can change in 13 years. BYD eclipsed Tesla in 2023 as the best-selling EV maker in the world, which is actually really insane. It's not here in the U.S., but around the world, these things are just popping up like crazy everywhere. It says 1 out of every 3 electric vehicles sold is made by the company, making up from 15% in 2020. So again, 1 in every 3 cars, 30%. It's up. It's doubled in the last 4 years. Instead of laughing off the competition, Musk is now sounding the alarms on threats from Chinese automakers. On a conference call with investors in January, he said Chinese EVs would pretty much demolish other American car makers if allowed to enter the U.S. America's biggest car companies have also started to recognize that they must figure out how to make electric cars cheap as soon as possible before China eats their lunch. Well, how are they going to do that? And are we going to have super cheap EVs all over the place? I mean, the cheap ones now just suck. They're bad. But it says with the likes of Tesla, GM, and Ford rolling out a handful of high-priced luxury EV models, Chinese companies already offer a slew of options across a range of price points. Starter EVs, beater EVs, ones for getting from point A to point B. And while the American automakers are still trying to win over consumers just in their own country, Beijing is already planning to work around trade barriers and get these cars sold around the world, including in the U.S. And we're talking like, I remember the numbers were really cheap it was a huge tariff. Dex, wasn't it like a $2,500? It was like, on how much it was like $3,000 or $4,000 just in tariffs for like the $7,000 car. But it was like still, you could get it for $8,000, and it was like comparable to like a Honda Accord or something.
It was really cheap. I think they had like a $10,000 car. Yeah.
So $13,000, you got yourself
BYD Seagull,
a brand new car, a brand new electric car, mind you, with all of the taxes, shipped, everything. And I'm not advertising for this. Like I seriously think that people really need to understand what it means to support China right now, especially. Everybody thinks maybe that's why too people are okay with supporting China. They're like, oh, but they're going bankrupt anyways. Like it's not going to matter. I just need my cheap car. If Chinese media and Chinese propaganda pieces and their gospel in China is openly telling, putting pieces in the paper and approved by the government saying, oh, China's failing and our economy is going bankrupt. They would not say that unless there's some sort of agenda behind it. They would just hide that. They can. It's not like there's freedom of press in China. So I think it's really weird. I think it's like, look weak when you're strong, look strong when you are weak, kind of thing. It says right now the legacies don't have competitive products. There's a vacuum. If Chinese EV Inc. were allowed to enter the U.S. today or next year, the legacies would be gutted. That was a quote from him. Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's sort of the same thing it's saying there. They've got the entire spec. Like, we can't get our electric car market outside of the Tesla side. The rest of our electric car market stinks. They have if they have one for almost every possible scenario you want. You want the cheapest car you can get, 10 grand, get a BYD Seagull. You want a fancy sports car, you can get a sexy EV sports car. It's got scissor doors called the iCar. It costs between $21,000 and $58,000. That's far cheaper than a Tesla. And you're talking like, sports car type vehicle with the big fancy doors that swing up, right?
Yeah,
they've got
door.
and yeah, exactly. And the other thing we got to think about is, they're manufacturing many more cars than we are because they have a bigger population and more people buying and using them, as well as they're exporting. So
and they control the lithium.
Far more experience. Yeah, they control the technology, they control the lithium, but it gives them more experience in this space than we actually have. And so that's why they can just eat our lunch when it comes to the EV market.
It's a global game. It has been a global game, Lee said. It says, just haven't been paying attention. I guess they're just getting straight up with us now. So we'll see what goes down there. Dex, thank you for your service today. Appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Barefooted Nurse, thank you. Carol, you are our top supporter tonight. Thank you so much for your support. Over on D-Live, thank you, and thank you. Clear Blue Water, thank you for just grabbing a badge. Kimbria, Anna Talker, and Agatha, thank you. Thank you for following me over on D-Live. It was wonderful having everybody here. Thank your mods by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. Our mods do an awesome job, of course, helping with the community. They are all great creators in the community, so make sure to go check out their channels over at marfooglenews.com/friends. You can also just go to our main website and click at the top. There's a tab, 3 over, Friends. And then boom, you've got all of the creators that are mods, of course, and then you have our friend creators as there as well. We're going to be adding a couple more to that too. So make sure to go check. We always try to update that every once in a while. So go over and check that out very soon. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a wrong lever shoutro. I said don't know where, bringing on the back now. What we say? And a talker and no